Okay, so we're gonna clean a spray gun. I brought this one from home. I lent it to a friend like a long time ago, like 8 years ago. And I got it back about 5 years ago, and it's been sitting in my toolbox ever since. And it was not cleaned very well. If you take a good look at it, it's pretty bad. My lid is missing. The cup is all dent and damaged. So I got a new cup. I got a new lid for it, and I got a rebuild kit so we can rebuild the gun, put new seals and stuff in it because I think it's gonna need it. So I'll just get rid of this. It's just garbage now. And tear this thing down, and I'll show you guys how to rebuild it, right? So what you need is a spray gun cleaning kit or a bunch of little brushes and stuff like that. I like using these little paint brushes, and I just take a razor blade and chop the bristles off nice and short so they're really stiff. Then you need some gun wash or lacquer thinner. You need some spray gun lube. And I got some spray gun paint remover. Never tried this stuff before. Apparently it works good, we'll see. And if that doesn't work, I got some paint stripper in here. Hardcore, right? If the stuff's really caked on there. And then a rag. And then we should be good. And you can have, these ones are good too. Like little tiny long bristly brush for agitating the junk out of the recesses of the gun. Okay? So, oh, I need a spray gun wrench as well. So for this gun, we'll take off the air cap and take a good look at it. Usually, ooh, there's a lot of buildup inside there. It's not too good. And what you do is you like hold it up to the light like this, and you look in the little holes and see if they're plugged. And I don't see all of them. There's one that I can't see. So there's some primer material in there, and this isn't just a primer gun. It's a 1.8 DeVilbiss PRI, and I don't know, I don't remember when I bought it or what the big deal was, but it wasn't expensive, and it actually says primer right on the air cap, 101. Yeah. So, and it says max inlet 30 psi. So this one's 30 psi for it to be, I guess, HVLP. I would say this is HVLP. It's got lots of holes and stuff in it, so, but it doesn't actually say on it anywhere either. But it has the max inlet pressure written right on it, right? So we'll get the fluid tip off, and the way you get a fluid tip off of a gun is you put it on the side of a bench like this and hold it down, and then figure out what type of wrench fits it where it is, and then just push down and it'll let go, right? We do this so we don't round off the nut. And fluid tips, I always treat them like spark plugs into a cylinder head because this fluid tip is steel, and it's pretty hard steel, right? And it's got very fine threads on it, and the body of the gun is, oh my God, that's nasty in there. This poor gun. It's been sitting like 5-6 years like this. Hopefully I can even get it out. So you treat it like a spark plug, and what I do every time I put a spark plug in is I put it in and I go backwards while pushing down until it clicks. Come on, click. There, like that. And what's happening is the first thread on the fluid tip and the first thread on the gun, what they're doing is riding on each other and then boop, down onto each other. So I know that it's going in correctly. It can't possibly be cross-threaded. And you always treat your spray guns like this because you can buy all these parts for it. You can't buy the gun body, and the gun body is the only part of the gun that's aluminum, so it's the first part that'll get wrecked. So you have to be very careful with it, right? Even these gun cups, like these old ones like this, they're very fine threads, and this is steel again, right? It's aluminum cup, but that's steel, and this threads into aluminum, so you always put these on backwards first. And another thing to note too is see how it has like a shiny little like taper on the end of this thing? That's actually a hydraulic seat. It's kind of like how a brake line is like flared and then has like a chamfer on it so it seals. The cups have that too, right? And you can see this one has actually been dropped maybe twice because it's not round anymore. So, and you can see it's been leaking. So it's not the threads that do the sealing, and on anything, threads never seal. It's always a hydraulic taper that does the sealing off, right? So you're probably thinking, oh, well, you can clean this up. Who cares if it has a dent? It's actually ruined from being dropped, right? So it is garbage, and really I shouldn't have even screwed it back into the gun because it can mess up where it seats into the bottom, right? But I'm sure it already been put on and off a couple of times, so whatever. Okay, so we're going to take the fluid tip off, and the first thing I'm going to do with these two things is I'm going to drop them into the cup of gun wash or lacquer thinner and let them soak. And it's a good thing to realize too that there is a difference between lacquer thinner and gun wash. What gun wash is it's recycled lacquer thinner, right? It's been recycled in a recycler like that silver box over there, right? So depending on what else went into the silver box, into the recycler, there could be all kinds of nasty stuff in there, and usually gun wash is off pH. It can have some paint stripper in it. It could have all kinds of different chemicals mixed in with it. So what I like to use, although it is a bit more money, is virgin lacquer thinner, meaning that it hasn't been recycled. It's the good stuff. It's strong and it's not acidic, right? So gun wash is fine, just never leave guns or gun parts in it overnight. Like, it's fine for cleaning, but don't leave it in the guns, right? It's not a good idea to leave them in the guns anyways, even lacquer thinner, but definitely don't do it with gun wash because it will destroy the gun, right? So the next thing, so we got the, this is called a baffle or air distributor. So that comes out, that's what just takes these ports where the air comes out of the gun and distributes it evenly through the air cap. And look at this needle, it's got so much paint built up on it. And this is why I got the rebuild kit, because there's a little white nylon packing in there. Like, it's not that one, it's this little guy right here. This little donut is made out of Teflon. It's a type of plastic, and it's what seals off the back of this needle from the air, right? And if you've ever drank a milkshake and there was a hole in the straw, you can't suck the milkshake up, and that's what happens to the gun. It's easier for the vacuum created at the fluid tip to draw in air into the back of the fluid packing than it is paint in from the cup, because the paint is thick and the air is thin, right? So almost always when you take apart a gun like this that hasn't been pulled apart in a really long time and hasn't been cleaned properly, that built up hardened paint down there is going to rip the crap out of that fluid packing and ruin it, right? So, and this is stuck. I can't even pull it out, so I know it's going to wreck it, right? And again, that tapered seat on the end of the fluid needle is delicate, like it's machined to match the fluid tip, so you never push it in or bang it on something or anything like that. You only want to use like a piece of wood or plastic. Like, I wouldn't even want to use metal on it because it might damage it. So I'll use the wooden handle on this to push it out, and then we can get it out. And oh man, that is not pretty. Okay, so that goes in the thing to soak. Hopefully it can clean. I'll throw that in there too, why not? It's a hot tub party. Okay, and then we can, oh man, can you guys see inside there? There's like a chunk of primer just like chilling on the bottom. It's been laying in there for 1,000 years. Okay, so we'll use these. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to use the paint stripper on this guy, but inside these kits, there's these little brushes. Oops, they all just spilled out. And they go into this little pencil thing. Great, I think it's this one. Yeah, and you put it in there, and then it clamps onto it. And this is the sort of scrubby brush for getting into, why isn't it tightening up? No, it is too tight already. Come on, you stupid thing. Okay, it's sort of holding on to it. So, and we're going to use some lacquer thinner. Maybe, do I have an extra something? I need an extra little container right here. Just something to catch some gun wash for the scrubbing. And we're just going to try to agitate all of that old primer out of there, right? So on the seat on the bottom, I'm going to use the brush. Again, because of its aluminum, you have to be careful. So you never use anything that's, oh, it is dissolving it a bit. I can see it going. I don't know if that chunk's going to let go. I might have to bust out the stripper. And it's important to note that you never want to use anything metal on the aluminum, right? Because the aluminum's soft. And even like if you have a chunk of paint like that, you don't want to chip it out with anything that's tougher than a piece of wood. So you use toothpicks or the bamboo barbecue skewers work awesome. But I ran out. I don't have any right now, so I'm just going to have to struggle with this little brush. It is slowly breaking it up, but probably what we're going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of paint stripper and stick it in there so it can eat away at that while I clean another part of the gun, right? Because it should make pretty short work of that. And again, like the recycled gun wash, you never want to leave this stuff on the gun because it'll eat the gun too. So anywhere where it's really built up and nasty, use some paint stripper and it'll clean it off, sort of do the work for us, right? And hopefully we can make this gun like new again. It's really built up on the back of this fluid packing. This is called the fluid packing nut. This is sort of what most of the spray guns are like. The only ones that are sort of weird are the SATAs. The SATAs have an internal fluid packing nut, and you need a special tool to adjust it and a special tool to remove the fluid packing, right? There's our not needing adjustment. They have a spring built onto the back of the fluid packing, so it's constantly applying pressure to it. So it's kind of a neat design, but it's also kind of like an expensive design. I'll show it to you here in this SATA gun. I'll try to really zoom in, but I'll get closer to it so you can see. And if you look behind the trigger, that white thing there is the fluid packing. And on these guns, you can see the spring and then a threaded nut. They have like this big Allen key that you have to shove in through the back to release it. And it's a little difficult to change the fluid packing nut on these, right? But this gives you an idea with this gun, which is on the slides as well. The red is where the fluid goes. So this is the fluid tip that removes. There's the threads and the hydraulic seat for it. The fluid packing. You can see the needle going into the tip, and then the gold part is the air cap, because they're made out of brass instead of steel. So the body's aluminum, the fluid tip is stainless steel, so you can see the bright shiny silver, then the gray silver, and then the gold, which is the air cap, right? So this is why you can't drop a gun, because they're delicate. The air caps always get ruined. The horns get bent and then they spray wonky afterwards because they're just made out of brass, right? But that's the fluid packing I'm talking about. We'll try to dig the one out of this gun and change it. Hopefully the one in this rebuild kit actually fits it. I'm not sure if this is actually the correct gun or not. It's just one I had in my toolbox, so I'm assuming it's for that gun. But I don't know where this copper ring goes or this massive donut, so spring looks the same though. I don't know. It might not be the right one, but hopefully it's close enough that it'll work. Okay, so I like using this this short bristle brush. This one's even shorter. I'm going to use this one because it's really good at scrubbing all of these little machined in like nooks and crannies on the gun and getting all this stuff out of everywhere. Now the short bristle brush won't get into the back of the trigger and stuff like that. That's what the long bristle brush is for, the back of there, right? It's really important when you do this too. You do it in a well ventilated area like this, or like a mix room, or wear your respirator when you're doing it, and wear rubber gloves. And you need thick ones like this. If you just wear the thin nitrile or latex gloves, they just fall apart in the thinners. So you'll have to double or even triple glove in order to not have your gloves just like fall off of your hands. So just be wary of that. You need like some gloves that are a little tougher, you know? So we'll try to get this off. And you can see now, I'm scrubbing this out and it has paint stripper on it. It's going into my gun wash now. And then it'll go into the solvent recycler, and that's how you get off pH gun wash, right? And why you want to use virgin thinners. So they're a little stronger and they won't damage the gun over time, right? The kits always come with these brushes too. They're like pipe cleaners. Watch out for the ends, they're metal, right? So you don't want to gouge and scratch the guns with those. It's a little nasty. The ones that SATA has have a little brush on the end so they don't do it. So you got to be careful bottoming this out. This big long one is for cleaning the suction tube on a suction feed gun. That's why it's hooked like that, because they get really hard to pull back out, right? So we could stick that in there, give it a nice little clean. Also, something I learned, if you get these spray gun kits that have that like nice red plastic thing, if you put gun wash on it, the plastic thing melts. So don't put these back when they're wet, because your little kit will be destroyed, right? So I'm just, you can see it is starting to break up, so that's good. Almost spilt the stripper. Okay, so they're not in the plastic tray. Go back to this little guy, get in there. I might have to put stripper in that again. That's a big chunk of primer down in there. Yep. Put another blob in there. Okay, and we can get the long bristle brush to do the back of the trigger. And in between these guys here. So the long bristles can get in these little recesses that the short ones can't get to. This is where the overspray like loves to build up, and it makes a not that old gun look like a really old gun. Now I should say this gun, I really only used it for side jobs, so it's not high mileage, it's just hard miles that are on it. And you can see like the body's in pretty good shape, like there's not any wear on it, it's not really a lot of play in it or anything. It just hasn't been cleaned well the last time it got used, thanks to my friend who doesn't know how to clean a gun, that I went to school with here at Centennial too. So it's getting pretty clean already though. Not too bad. If I can just get that giant chunk of primer out of the end. Maybe we'll try this brush. Oh, it's almost gone. Maybe I put this down from the top, I can get it. Oh, sorta. Stripper again. And we just keep going until we can get it out of there. Again, don't leave the stripper in this gun for very long, because it is really corrosive. Anytime you strip a car, as we learned, you have to neutralize it. So just imagine what it does to a nice, delicate gun, right? So the other thing, well, that's coming off pretty good now. So these kits come with like a toothbrush in it. They're pretty stiff nylon bristles. So it should be able to get this off without this stripper, hopefully. And again, like when you end up with this, you want to like scrape it with something. Don't. You don't want to use like a Scotch-Brite pad or anything, right? Because these are precision machine parts, right? So this little point that's on the end there, it's got a seat into the fluid tip, and the shaft has to slide back and forth on the fluid tip. And you might be able to see there's actually a little bit shinier spot there. That's where it like slides back and forth on that Teflon fluid packing. They end up like polished there, right? And that's why there's spray gun lube to lubricate that part for the fluid packing, right? So this actually came out pretty nice now. It looks good. I'll scrub the back a bit just to make it look good. And that part is done. So hopefully your primer gun at work or your gun at work isn't as dirty and neglected as this thing is, but I actually forgot I owned this gun. I was going through my toolbox just out of sheer boredom from being isolated, mostly into my garage, to give my wife a break. And I found this gun and I was like, oh, this is perfect for this class because it's gross. Okay. And then we'll start attacking these parts. And these DeVilbiss guns, I don't know if you can see, but there's like a hex-shaped like snap ring in there. If you can grab that and release it with like a pick, you can remove the ring from the actual brass cap and clean them separately, right? I'm not gonna do that though. I don't really care that much to make it perfect, and I don't have a pick right here. For the sake of not making this video take absolutely forever, I won't bother. We should be able to get all of this nice and clean. Switch to the stiff one now so I can agitate all the dried on primer out of those little tiny orifices. This cap's interesting too. I was explaining to you guys in the other video that air caps can have secondary orifices that are top and bottom. This has the top and bottom secondary orifices. So it's got one there, two, right? Secondary orifices, primary, secondary, 1, 2, and then 3, 4, right? And maybe because this is a primer gun, it's designed to break up thick material, they added the 2 extra ones. And again, they do the second stage of atomization, right? So I got a little bit of material built up on here, and what you want to do is take some metal and attack it. I'm going to use the wood on the back of this paintbrush and try to scrape it off with it. And it's getting it. Yeah, from it soaking in the solvent, it kind of softens that resin, right? If you put lacquer thinner on your car, it wouldn't do anything to it. But imagine you like drove it into a swimming pool of lacquer thinner. It would soften the paint, right? So even though this is 2K primer, this is a pretty strong chemical, so it won't actually break up the chemical bond, but it will soften it, that's for sure, right? And look at this, nice and clean. It's a common spot that people miss, is it likes to build up on the air cap horns, especially on primer guns. Okay. All these little grooves they put on, I think it's to make the guns easier to pull apart with rubber gloves on, but they make it a bitch to clean. I kind of wish they were just smooth or smoother anyways. Now hopefully I got all those ports, those orifices open now. I'm just going to squirt some thinners through the air caps and through those primary and secondary orifices. Just rinse this thing off and we'll take a look at it in the light again and see if we got it good or not. Should be good now, but we shall see. guys see the holes? I don't know. 1, 2. Oh yeah, they're all free now. Yeah, we're good. Good to go. Saved her. Okay, that thing's done. Now we just got to deal with this nasty thing. Okay, I'm just going to go straight to the stripper. There's a big hunk of junk laying in the bottom of there too. I'm just going to fill this thing right up with stripper. And then attack it with one of those pipe cleaners. And hopefully that'll get it. We'll use this one. You really need these thicker gloves when you're using the paint stripper too. And they will swell. You'll probably see my fingers like getting fatter from being in this lacquer thinner and in the paint stripper as well, because they are very strong chemicals. Oh yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Oh no, it doesn't really. One more round. And again, be careful with these pipe cleaners that you're not bottoming it out in the bottom of the fluid tip in the end, because that sharp little point is going to mess up the machining in the end of this. So don't like grind it in there and push hard, right? You just want to use light pressure and make sure that little metal tip's not bottoming out in the fluid tip, right? This is a deep one too, but we can use this long bristle brush because it can probably already get down all the way to the bottom. Stuff it in there, and then we'll use that fancy little brush afterwards. Let's see if we can clean the bottom of this out. Sometimes it really helps to have like a flashlight to look into the end of this, and this is a really long, deep fluid tip too. Where is that other thing? Oh, it's in here. Just that down in there and clean the bottom. That's where we were trying not to hit with the wire on the end of the pipe cleaner. I think this is getting it now. Clean the threads out. Clean all these distribution holes, O-ring. They shouldn't be dirty because technically paint doesn't go in those, but they do get buildup, and usually it's from cleaning the gun where they get the buildup, like paint residue. All these little holes that are around the outside of this fluid tip. And then go back to this guy. Long bristly brush. Get down in those holes and agitate them out. This side too. And we'll run some gun wash or lacquer thinner through it. Oh, that's not a good sign. Plugged. There's something still in there. There we go. Oh, it's squirting out sideways, so it's not clean yet. It looks pretty good though. Oh, and one more time. It looks nice and shiny silver in there now to me. This one you don't have to be as gentle with because it is steel, it's not aluminum, right? But you still don't want to scratch that tapered seat in the bottom, right? I gotta say, this thing looks like frickin' new now. That worked really well. I'm kind of surprised, actually. I think that is good. Beauty. Look at that. Looks like brand new inside there. You guys see? She's beauty. Okay, so that's done. That's done. That's done. Everything else in there is done. This we didn't clean. We should. It's got residue on it. Don't want one dirty knob. Polish this knob up too, you know. Make the whole gun look nice. Polish it up. Brand spanking. That looks killer. Alright, now we'll see what's inside here. And hopefully we can change that fluid packing, which I bet you isn't so great anymore. So let's see, we got a spring. Is it the same? Yes, it is. We'll change the spring. We got an air. I wonder if this air one's okay. Feels okay. We'll test it and see if it's leaking later. It's probably okay, because again, this doesn't have a lot of mileage on it. Now we should be able to use this one. Nope, this one. This one. This one to release that nut. So this again is the fluid packing nut. And expose. Oh, it's a little slimy. Ugh. Man. That's probably from the paint stripper more than... No, it's probably got primer all in it. That's not a good sign. If there's primer in this nut, then it was probably leaking backwards, you know? So clean this guy up in hopes that we can put a new fluid packing in. The only thing that sucks when you have a nasty old gun like this is usually the fluid packing is like welded in with glue, you know? Or not glue, with primer, like glue. Okay, packing nut looks like brand new. So now we have to get that fluid packing out of the back. And sometimes if you get lucky, you can use the back of the needle and shove it through. Nope, won't go. To the front of the needle. Oh. Come on. Come on. Ugh. Come on. You want to go? There we go. Oh, well, I got half of it. No, that's it. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Okay, we got it. So that's the old fluid packing. Looks like crap. So where's the new one? Is it that guy? No, it should be this one. I don't know. Maybe this is the wrong kit. Or maybe it's those two in combination. Now let's see which one fits this needle. Nope. Nope. It's this guy. It's this one. So it's nice and tight. So that one goes in there. Maybe this goes behind it or something. I'm gonna say. We'll do that. That makes sense. Then the nut can ride on that. Again, I don't think this kit's for this exact gun, so working with tolerances here and a cheap teacher. I don't even know if you can still get them for this gun. This gun's probably, I probably bought this gun 20 years ago. Like when I was like a level 1 apprentice. And again, it was just for doing side jobs in my dad's garage. I think that chunk of primer is gone now. Still a little bit in there. I find it, like you can see how they're spiraling, like in counter rotation, like counterclockwise rotation. I find they scrub deeper in the hole if you spin them in that direction, because it sort of forces the bristles down instead of up. It might be just in my head, but I feel like it works better if you do it that way. Okay, I think that's it. And I'll just make sure all that paint stripper's off. A liberal flushing of lacquer thinner. And I think we are ready for reassembly. Okay, so to put this fluid packing back in, we'll see if this one is shot. I imagine it kind of has to be, but maybe it isn't. Let's just see. Yeah, it's jiggly. Like I can feel it has play. If it has play, you know air is getting past it, right? So this one's no good if you look at it, this little fluid packing, which it looks way too thin. I've never seen one this small before. But see how it can wiggle on the shaft? So there's play inside that. It's not on there tight, so it's not going to work, right? So now usually the easiest way to do that, or do this, is you put this on the needle, then you put whatever part goes next, which I think is this part. I'm gonna say, is it this part? Or is it this thing? Oh, maybe it's this. Yeah, maybe that's better. And then the packing. I don't know what this thing does. Maybe, I don't know. Probably should read the instructions, I don't know. So then if you assemble it on the needle, then it'll go in straight, right? So that's what we're gonna try to do by pressing this, sticking that in there, and assembling these three parts on the fluid tip. So one part, oh, this is awkward. Two parts, no, that's not gonna work. I think it is this one. Let's just have to wear in. Or maybe not. I don't know. I will just stick it in and see if it leaks. I'm gonna put this on. Then put it back into its hole. Damn it. This may not seem like it's easier, but getting the little bits in the back of that gun, you have to have some pretty tiny fingers. Come on, get on there. Okay, now up into your home. You go, like that. Then when we thread the nut on, because it's on the fluid tip already, it shouldn't cross thread. And it should just go back to where it belongs. Should. Oh, it feels like it's cross threading. Go backwards first. Do the spark plug trick. Okay. And thread it down. It does not look like it's going in properly. Oh my god, it's a disaster. Let's try it the other way. Easy. Easy. don't think this is the right fluid packing. I need to get the correct one. Yeah, I think it's too fat. Yeah, that's what the problem is. This fluid packing's the wrong one. Okay, so if this is the original one, what in here is like that? Is this it? No. Okay, we'll just have to put the old one back in and hope for the best. Okay, nut. Needle. So the other thing that might save this gun is you can tighten the fluid packing down by adjusting this nut, and it'll tighten down onto the needle, right? But before we do that, what you want to do is lubricate the needle. And where we lubricate the needle is, you don't put it on the tapered part. You don't put it back here where it rides. You actually put it on the first part that is straight. And it just needs like one little drip on there, right? So if you put it on the tapered part, it'll end up in the fluid tip, like in the paint passage. If you put it on the first part of the part where it's straight, it'll lubricate the fluid packing and then wipe itself off as it goes through, right? So that's where the oil goes. Stick this back in here. And you can see the oil is actually on the fluid packing now. And push it through. And what you want to do is tighten down the fluid packing until you can't move the needle anymore. I know that sounds weird, but it means it's tightened down, and then you have to reseat it. So we're going to tighten it down, tighten it down, tighten it down. Well, yeah, it's starting to grab it now, right? It's harder to slide even on the oil. One more quarter turn and it is tight, right? So then what we're going to do, it's the same procedure if you have a new fluid packing. You have to wear it in, right? So you put your spring on. Oh, that's what this thing is. This is for the back of the spring, I think. Let's see if it fits in this knob. Nope, this is definitely for a different gun. Definitely. I'm gonna pull the one off the old spring. Oh, no, it's this one? This one goes on the back of the spring. Oh God. Yeah. And that's just so it's easier to turn the knob, and the knob is smoother riding on the plastic instead of the edge of the spring, right? So like this, tighten it in until it hits the trigger but isn't closing it. And then what you got to do is just like take your gun home with you and just pull the trigger 10,000 times while you're watching TV, and it'll reseat in the fluid packing or seat in a new fluid packing, and then your gun will be good to go for the next day. You can't just go and spray, because what will happen is when the fluid packing nut is tight, the spring may not be able to push it back, and then you'll have drips all over your car. So you got to make sure you have it seated in all the way perfectly before you go to use it on a car, or it will be disaster. But then it should spray like a brand new gun, and hopefully this one does. So it's pulling it pretty tight. It doesn't jiggle anymore. I think it might have got it. So what they do with these guns when the fluid packings go in is it's tapered like this, right? So the fluid packing sits in there, and when you smush it, it like tightens up like this, right, on the needle, and then you have to like work it back and forth so it'll slide easily. It'll make it into a nice smooth hole again, right? And this gun should be good to go now. And this thing, I didn't really clean this, but looks okay. I'll give it a quick clean. Okay, there we go. I know this is a bit of a long video, but that goes on there somewhere. And this goes on, and again, you pull the trigger, thread it on backwards until it clicks, and then go forwards until it seats, and then it just gets a snugging. And it's even best to snug it on the side of a bench so it doesn't slip off, but you're not tightening it a lot. You just want to make sure that it's seated so the air doesn't leak, right? Because anytime you have a sputtering gun, it'll either be a loose fluid tip or a blown fluid packing, and it's because the seat in the back of the tip, it's easier for it to suck in air, especially because the air is actually pressurized behind there, or if you suck the air in the back, right? So if you get a sputtery gun, it's usually the first two things it is. And then I'm just going to run some thinners through it, make sure there's no oil or stripper left in there. Okay. Now if you use recycled gun wash when you clean your guns, it's best to blow them dry out after, because you know there's a bit of gun wash sitting in there, right? These ones too, especially these cheaper guns, they have really thin, small threads. The Iwatas are like this too. So you go backwards first, and that air distributor is aluminum, and this ring is steel. And it clicks, and then you go forwards. And you know it's not going to be cross-threaded. We'll straighten out the air cap horns. Okay. Put my new cup on, backwards till it clicks, and forwards, snug it down. I don't put a wrench on these because they don't need it. You have so much torque with the big cup anyways. Okay, and I'm just gonna throw a regulator on here, see if it sprays okay. This feels like it's going to leak. Why isn't that tightening up? Huh. Because you put a German regulator on a US gun, they don't want to work with each other. Okay, I'm just going to pressurize it with a blowgun then. Forget it. I have the air regulator on the gun wash machine, so it shouldn't matter. We'll just see how it goes. So I'm just pressurizing it to make sure that this seal is not leaking and that returns. And if I wanted to check to see if it's sputtery, you can just put some water in here and spray it. You don't want to spray gun wash because it's like a VOC nightmare, and see if it's sputtering. I'll test it out later on though, but I mean, it looks pretty good now, right? So the last step is to just rinse it down with some gun wash, or I'll use this fancy stuff because that's what it's designed to do. And then polish your gun back up with a decently clean rag, and this is just to get any residue from your gloves or any slight residue from the slightly dirty gun wash off of the spray gun. Look at that. Nice new-ish old DeVilbiss primer gun. Huh? Looks good, right? So this should spray like brand spanking. It's got a nice clean cap now. $15 and she's good to go. The fluid packing rebuild kits for DeVilbiss are usually about $65. I think the Techno ones are a bit more. The SATA and Iwata ones are a little crazy. I think the little rebuild kit is like 120-ish or something like that. They're a bit more money, but it's still cheaper than the whole gun, right? But I mean, you look at this thing now, looks great, right? So this thing should be ready to rock and roll despite not having the fluid packing. The very last thing that I'd want to do to it is put a drop of oil right here to lubricate the air valve. Come on, come out right there. And I like to put one just here on the trigger on both sides, and I'll put one more on the back of this needle just for good measure, and then you don't get squeaky trigger. Everything feels nice and smooth and nice, right? Some guns like this one too, they have a black pad on the back of the trigger. That's a piece of plastic to make it have like a smoother action on the air valve too. So it sprays nice now. The only squeak that I can hear is that spring being compressed, and it should be good to go, right? And that's all what you got to do. And remember, this isn't regular oil, this is spray gun lube, right? So it's specially formulated for use on spray guns and paint stirring equipment. It contains no silicone. It's actually a water-based oil. It doesn't cause fish eyes, right? These little kits come with it too. I'm not a big fan of this one because it's so watery and runny. But you can use that one too. There's one that I have, I think it came in like a Princess Auto cleaning kit, and it's like a paste, it's like grease. It works really nice too. And then the one that SATA sells is good too. It looks like white lithium grease, but it's the same thing. It's a water-based lubricant just for spray guns. So that's how you take a gun, tear it down, make your brand spanking again, right? Now I think this gun I bought at the Barrie Automotive Flea Market, and I think I paid 85 bucks for it. It's just coming back to me now. Completely forgot I even had this thing. But yeah, you can even get a used spray gun for probably like really cheap and just rebuild it yourself, right? If you look up DeVilbiss PRI, like on the internet, I'm sure you could find the rebuild kit for it with all the springs and fluid packings and air needles and everything you need to rebuild it. And these guns too are great because if you need an air cap, you just look up the air cap by gun and then the number, so 101. And these, I think these caps are like, they're less than 100 bucks. Like I want to say they're like $85. The fluid tips are about the same, and same with the needles. And you can buy them individually separately, right? So they're quite cheap guns to get your hands on and rebuild on a budget, and they do spray pretty damn good, right? So I mean, if you're just starting out or if you just need a primer gun, it's definitely an awesome way to go. Nothing wrong with them at all. And the good thing about buying a DeVilbiss or a SATA or an Iwata too is you can buy all these individual parts. If you buy something at Princess Auto or something like, I don't know, a Canadian Tire or whatever, you won't be able to buy any of the parts to rebuild it. Now personally for me, when I clean a gun between uses, I pull off the air cap, I pull off the fluid tip, and I pull off the cup and I clean it out that way. I don't always yank the needle out, but I make sure the needle is clean, right? You can do it the other way too, is pull off the air cap and pull the needle out every time, but you just want to make sure that paint isn't building up on the needle, so when you do pull it out, it doesn't destroy the fluid packing, right? So hopefully this gun's good to go now for me. If not, I might have to buy the actual rebuilt gun for this gun and not what was kicking around in my toolbox, but there you go. So yeah, hopefully we normally would do this in lab. You will do it in lab when you come back, but now you got a head start, you know exactly how to do it. It should look like brand spanking when it's done. Okay, and yeah, so until the next video, which is on spray boots.